The soaring dragon altar in the Five Colors Treasure Tower is actually a big scam. Hundreds of Void King realms couldn't accept this reality for a while. Near the soaring dragon altar, everyone looked gloomy, looking at the dead bodies and broken bodies all over the floor. If soaring dragon altar is a scam, then what are these dead people died for? Some of these people have relatives and friends who are still alive. Young Lady Qin, should you give an explanation about this matter? Suddenly, in the crowd, someone looked at Qin Yu who was at the back and asked coldly. Qin Yu had also stopped a long time ago, and, because of her low strength, she didn't go far. At this moment, together with her guards, she was behind the crowd, and she was also 40 feet away from the nearest martial artist. Upon hearing this, Qin Yu frowned, raised her head, weakly said, "What does this friend mean by saying that?" "Humph, could it be young Lady Qin still not clear? You said this is the soaring dragon altar. I believe in it, but I don't expect it to be a scam. So many people have been killed and injured, could it be young Lady Qin still want to act dumb?" The person who spoke was filled with righteous indignation, as if Qin Yu had really deceived them, and asked her to be responsible for the dead martial artist. This statement of his was actually recognized by many martial artists, and they looked at Qin Yu with unkind expressions, as if they were about to vent their grievances on Qin Yu. Qin Yu frowned more severely. She hadn't spoken yet, and a guard next to her couldn't help but snorted coldly, "This friend. Can you think about it before you speak? What does this matter have to do with my young lady? Why doesn't it matter? If young Lady Qin Yu did not say this is the soaring dragon altar, I wouldn't be. You wouldn't be in this situation?" Before that person could finish speaking, Duan Tianxi suddenly sneered, looked at the person murderously, and said, "It's so ridiculous, think about it yourself, even without young Lady Qin's information, there is such a big place here. By chance, will you let it go? Duan Tianxi is the son of the city lord after all, and his strength is not weak. Among the martial artists in Maplewood City, he have a very high reputation and popularity." Hearing what he said, many people bowed their heads and began to think, and found that this is indeed true. Even without Qin Yu's explanation at that time, everyone would not ignore the soaring dragon altar. They will definitely swarm it, and the ending will probably be the same as it is now. In other words, with or without Qin Yu, the ending will not change. Because of young Lady Qin's information, the blame is placed on her. Don't you think it's too ridiculous? Duan Tianxi looked at the martial artist who had spoken before with a cold face. How dare that person look at Duan Tianxi, his eyes can't help but drift from side to side. Yes, young Lady Qin is not at fault. If anyone dares to accuse her, it is an enemy of my raging fire palace. Zhong Zijin also spoke indifferently. My Zhang family has the same attitude. Zhang Chehi answered with a smile, and stood on the righteous side in time to build up a reputation for the Zhang family. Of course I won't blame young Lady Qin, this is just a few irresponsible remarks, young Lady Qin doesn't have to care about these clowns. Yes, if it weren't for young Lady Qin, I didn't even know what this thing was. Not only not being grateful, but even made accusations. It's really the scum of the Maplewood City martial artist. There was a scream, and the face of the person who had been accusing Qin Yu before was flushed, wishing to find a hole and never come out again. Not far away, Qin Yu smiled slightly, and said politely, "You are all people who understand the truth, but, this mistress is not wrong, this soaring dragon altar does have treasures. Where is it?" Duan Tianxi and Zhong Zijin asked hurriedly. But Yang Kai's heart sank, staring at Qin Yu unmovingly, lest she say something that he didn't want to hear. Qin Yu smiled slightly and said, "This soaring dragon altar itself, is a treasure. Perhaps the illusion were formed by the thing on it. The soaring dragon altar is created by the bone of true dragon. Even the Emperor Senior Stage covet it as a high-value item refining material." With a word, everyone's expressions became hot. Qin Yu said again, "But, with our power, it is impossible to destroy the soaring dragon altar. Otherwise, it will not always exist in the Five Colors Treasure Tower, it will be taken away by an expert long ago. If it was attacked hastily, I'm afraid it will cause a strong restriction, so I advise you not to act rashly." Hearing what she said, the expressions of Zhong Zijin and Duan Tianxi gradually calmed down, turned to look at the huge soaring dragon altar, and sighed. The treasure is right in front of them, but they are unable to get, which makes them feel unwilling. By the way, young Lady Qin. Yang Kai, who had not spoken, suddenly clasped his fists, since young Lady Qin knows something about the soaring dragon altar, then dared to ask, when can we leave here? After all, the friends who retreated before. You saw it too. We can't always be trapped here, right? Yes, young Lady Qin, please advise. Many people suddenly realized this problem and all turned their attention to Qin Yu. Qin Yu glanced at Yang Kai deeply, pursed her lips and said with a smile, you can leave now. Once the treasures on the soaring dragon altar disappear, the power of restraint will also lose its effect. And this soaring dragon altar will be over half an hour later, sinking into the ground, drift away in the void, and appear again next time, but I don't know when it will be. But, you can also choose not to leave. After all, the oppression of the dragon prestige still exists. You will obtain benefits from cultivating here. It's already very clear, and there is no need for this mistress to say more. Yang Kai was very uncomfortable with her eyes, and there was always a feeling of revealing a secret, but he was still grateful. Thank you young Lady Qin for your guidance. Having said that, he did not move. He didn't want to be the example for the other, he didn't want to risk being killed inexplicably by the mysterious light shot from the soaring dragon altar when he retreat. So he simply sat cross-legged on the ground and took out a source congealing pill to take it. Relying on the powerful dragon prestige oppression here, using this two-way approach to transform the source strength in the body. Not only him, none of the martial artists moved, waiting for the birth of the first person to act. And most of them, like Yang Kai, sat down cross-legged, obviously not wanting to waste this great opportunity. As for the remaining people, they eagerly wanted to leave here and look for treasures elsewhere, but they didn't have the guts to leave. Their eyes drifted from side to side, flickering and watching. Seeing this situation, Qin Yu smiled slightly, turned around, and walked back a few steps. Young lady! The guards around her were shocked. Hurriedly shouted. In an instant, his back was wet with cold sweat. What gives them peace of mind is. Qin Yu did not encounter an attack from the soaring dragon altar. It seemed that what she said before was true, once the treasure on the altar disappeared. The power of restriction will no longer work. Seeing Qin Yu leading by example, many martial artists all settled down, used various methods, and left. Soon, there were only dozens of martial artists left near the soaring dragon altar. Yang Kai was among them. He has dissipated the golden holy dragon origin, and bear the terrifying dragon prestige with his flesh body. Under the catalysis of the medicinal effect of source congealing pill, he only feels the rapid transformation of the source strength in his body. With a little calculation, half an hour of cultivation here is enough to be worth about 10 days of hard work cultivation outside. Just as Qin Yu said, half an hour later, accompanied by the humming and trembling of the earth, the soaring dragon altar on the ground actually sank slowly underground under the action of an inexplicable force. After only half a cup of tea, the entire soaring dragon altar was gone. Even the oppression of that dragon prestige disappeared without a trace. Yang Kai sighed and stood up. He turned his head and looked at it, and the dozens of martial artists who remained behind also stood up, some alone, some in groups, but all were in peace and there was no dispute. Soon, these dozens of people galloped out in different directions. Yang Kai also found a direction at will, and continued to look for the 5-color beam of light leading to the second floor. When he was flying for a while, he suddenly frowned, and suddenly increased his speed. After an hour, his face looked ugly, he stopped his steps suddenly, turned around, and looked behind him. There was no one behind, but after waiting for a while, a mysterious light came quickly from the distance. When it got closer, Yang Kai could see that it was a flying artifact similar to the one he had seen before. On the ship on that building, a slender figure stood on the deck, looking into the distance. After seeing Yang Kai, quickly turned around, as if ordering something to others. Not long after, the ship flew in front of Yang Kai and landed slowly. Young Lady Qin. Yang Kai looked at the Qin Yu and the guards of the Void King realm who had come down from the ship, with a gloomy expression. What is the meaning of Young Lady Qin? Following all the way, do you think I can't notice it? Qin Yu heard this and apologized, please don't blame this mistress. This mistress did not intend to follow you, but your speed is too fast, the ship of my Qin family actually couldn't catch up, so I followed all the way. Yang Kai frowned, his expression on his face relaxed a little, and he said, young lady Qin has something to ask of me? Right. Qin Yu nodded when she heard the words. I have nothing to do with young lady Qin. I don't know why you are looking for me. Yang Kai looked confused, but instinctively rejected this weak woman. In front of her, Yang Kai always felt insecure. In fact, it's nothing, but this mistress has a question to ask you. A question? Well, dare to ask your surname? That's the problem? Yang Kai was stunned. Of course not. Qin Yu pursed her lips, then suddenly coughed slightly, and then said, this mistress is not asking this question. Yang Kai nodded and said, my surname is Yang. It turned out to be Brother Yang. Qin Yu understood, and immediately moved her lips, and a voice came into Yang Kai's ears. Dare to ask Brother Yang, are there really no treasures on the soaring dragon altar? To be continued. Dare to ask Brother Yang, are there really no treasures on the soaring dragon altar? Qin Yu's voice was accurately transmitted to Yang Kai's ears. Why would young lady Qin ask that? Yang Kai looked at Qin Yu with a look of surprise, looking extremely stunned. Qin Yu looked at Yang Kai deeply, looking straight into Yang Kai's eyes with her clear and flawless eyes, as if she wanted to look deep into Yang Kai's heart. Yang Kai looked at her indifferently. Suddenly, he frowned and said in a low voice, young lady Qin meant. Could it be that the dozen treasures on the soaring dragon altar are not all illusions? Haha. Qin Yu smiled, this mistress was not sure, but I just asked casually. At that time, there were only 3 of you who were near the soaring dragon altar. There were more than a dozen pieces on it. Everything is checked by you. Yang Kai shook his head and said, anyway, I didn't see the treasure, and according to my observation, those 2 did not get any benefit. So that's the case, this mistress is thinking too much. Qin Yu nodded apologetically. This is what young lady Qin wants to ask? Yes, I'm sorry to have delayed Brother Yang's time. It's okay, since there's nothing else, I'll leave. Yang Kai clasped his fists and left. Brother Yang, wait! Qin Yu suddenly called him. What's the matter? Yang Kai frowned, a little displeased. If it's not because that the other party was a weak woman and had a good temperament, he would not bother to talk to her. After all, he and Qin Yu did not have any intersection before. Brother Yang calms down, this mistress wants to ask. Brother Yang, are you going to find the entrance to the 2nd floor next? So what? Yang Kai did not deny it. Then Brother Yang knows where the entrance is? Yang Kai shook his head. He only knew that the entrance was a 5-color beam of light. How could he know where the 5-color beam was? Kong Saran didn't tell him this at the time. However, since it is a 5-color beam of light, it should not be difficult to find it. As long as the distance is not too far, he should be able to find something. But seeing Qin Yu's mysterious look, Yang Kai suddenly realized that things might not be as simple as he thought, and he couldn't help but change his expression. Young lady Qin knows where the entrance is? I don't know the exact location. Qin Yu shook her head apologetically. Yang Kai was speechless. Qin Yu smiled and said, although this mistress doesn't know the specific location, she knows a general idea. That said, she suddenly muttered in a low voice, among the mountains. Misty clouds, clear springs in the mountains, beams of light appear. Between the mountains, misty clouds. The mountain stream is clear. The beam of light appears? Yang Kai repeated with frowning. Exactly. Qin Yu nodded. The 5-color beam of light at the entrance is inexhaustible, but if you don't find the right place, it is impossible to find it. Even if you pass by, you may miss the opportunity. Is this what you learned from the ancient book? Yang Kai looked at her in surprise. Qin Yu nodded. Young lady Qin really reads many books, she has a lot of knowledge. Yang Kai admired extremely. Qin Yu's pale face showed a slight blush, and for a while, she seemed more alive. She shook her head and said, Brother Yang is ridiculous. This mistress only know few things. Actually, this mistress is now going to look for the entrance to the 2nd floor. If Brother Yang doesn't mind, how about walking with me? She actually developed an invitation to Yang Kai. Yang Kai heard the words and looked up at the flight artifact behind her, with a moved expression on his face. If he have this ship, he can save a lot of energy, and he can even rest on the ship to maintain his energy, which is a good idea. But I'm used to move by myself, so young lady Qin good intentions is accepted in my heart. Yang Kai thought about it, but declined Qin Yu's proposal. Qin Yu suddenly had a look of disappointment, but she didn't try to force it, but nodded, if this is the case, this mistress will not disturb brother Yang. Good luck to brother Yang. You too, goodbye. Yang Kai clasped his fists and turned away. Really don't know how to be grateful. After his figure disappeared, one of Qin Yu's guards stared at the direction of Yang Kai's disappearance and gave a cold snort, with a look of dissatisfaction, obviously feeling mad for Qin Yu. Qin Yu smiled slightly and said, it's just that he acted cautiously. How could it have something to do with his lack of appreciation? I think it's normal for him to choose this way. Young lady, you are too kind. The guard looked upset. By the way, young lady, why did you ask him like that before? Aren't all the treasures on the soaring dragon altar fake? Perhaps, but I have seen some discrepancies from the ancient book, and I don't know what's going on. After saying a few words, Qin Yu suddenly coughed violently. The guard was shocked and quickly said, young miss, it's better to go back to the ship, it's windy outside. N. Qin Yu nodded quickly and turned towards the boat. At the same time, somewhere on the first floor, there was a petite woman with a striking crescent-shaped birthmark on her face. This woman was surprisingly Mo Zioki, who entered the Five Colors Treasure Tower with Yang Kai and was separated. At this moment, Mo Zioki rides a monster beast that resembles a lion and a tiger. The monster beast has a fierce look, and its hair is full of snow and silver. The body is huge, and the heat sprayed from its nostrils seems to contain an inexplicable force. It corroded the ground into small holes when it hit the ground. If anyone is here, they will be surprised. Because what Mo Zioki is riding is the famous silver hair liger beast. Although this beast does not inherit the blood of the ancient Holy Spirit, it is also extremely difficult. It was a 5th order beast when it was born. Depending on its natural aptitude, when it reached the peak, it can grow to the 10th order or even 11th order. In other words, it is comparable to martial artist of Void King realm or even principal source stage. There are even legendary 12th order silver hair liger beast that has cultivated to the Emperor senior stage. This silver-haired liger beast is obviously not comparable to the existence of principal source stage, it only exudes the aura of the 10th order peak, but it should not be underestimated. The silver-haired liger beast is inherently ferocious and combative, and it is not something that ordinary martial artist can tame. Even if it is the powerful Emperor Senior, they may not be able to succeed. The most likely result is that the liger will fight to death, and finally died after doing its best. But now, this majestic silver-haired liger beast is used by Mo Zioki as a means of transportation. Instead of being dissatisfied, it is obedient to her words. It doesn't dare to go to the different direction than the one ordered, which is really incredible. And in front of Mo Zioki, there is a strange beast about the size of a palm, flying. This strange beast looks a bit like a bat, unremarkable, but judging from the power fluctuations in its body, it is also a 10th order monster beast. Flying bats, like silver hair liger beast, are extremely rare species. Don't know what method Mo Zioki used to get along with these two monster beasts and make them obey her. Don't even know if these two monster beasts was tamed after Mo Zioki entered the Five Colors Treasure Tower, or they were always there. Little bat, hurry up, find the entrance and I will give you delicious food. Here, little silver, hurry up and follow up, don't be so slow. Mo Zioki sat on the liger beast's back giving orders, obviously looking for the entrance to the second floor. The flying bat was named Little Bat by Mo Zioki, and seems to have some special abilities. It took Mo Zioki all the way and soon came to a place surrounded by mountains. On the mountain stream, clouds and mists were lingering. The peaks are straight to the sky, unable to see the top, very strange. And somewhere in the mountains, there is the sound of a mountain spring, which is endless. The flying bat flew directly to the vicinity of the mountain spring, and flew around in a certain place. Mo Zioki quickly drove the silver hair liger beast to follow it, and when she came to the place, she looked up and suddenly laughed, it's not hard to find. I must be the first one, hee hee. When she was about to go forward, she suddenly remembered something and said, yes, let's see where brother Yang is. While she was talking, she took out a circular bead from her space ring and poured some power in it. After a while, she showed a touch of disappointment and gritted her teeth and said, it's really hateful, in this ghost place, the sound bead doesn't work. Is it because the laws of heaven and earth are too broken? Forget it, Brother Yang must be here too, little bat, you just wait here, and when you see Brother Yang, take him to the second floor to find me. After giving the order, she took out another piece of jade slip, poured spiritual mind into it, and left some information to the flying bat, which rushed forward happily. Not far ahead, mysterious light flashed, and Mozoki and the liger were gone. The flying bat stayed in place, but it only circled around, then suddenly fell next to a pile of rocks, and disappeared into the ground. On the third floor of the Five Colors Treasure Tower, Lan Xun wandered around, looking around her surroundings. There was a faint fluorescence from her body. The fluorescence seemed to have an inexplicable power to withstand all dangers. Suddenly, she stayed in a secluded valley area. After perceiving it carefully, she couldn't help but be happy, this is it. While talking, she took out many formations from the space ring and started getting busy nearby. 2 days later, she arranged everything and took out a large number of source crystals to pile up nearby. Then she began to sit on the ground cross-legged, practicing profound arts silently, and began to hit the bottleneck of principal source stage. With the passage of time, Lan Xun's delicate body exuded an inexplicable attraction, and there suddenly appeared many fireflies-like things nearby. These things looked like the starlight that Yang Kai had absorbed in the starlight channel, somewhat similar. But if you perceive it carefully, the two are fundamentally different. The starlight in the starlight channel is like a catalyst, which can prompt the Saint Yuan in the martial artist to quickly transform towards the source strength. But in the starlight here, there are many broken laws of heaven and earth. The starlight entered the body, Lan Xun felt the power of the law, and the aura on her body fluctuated stronger and stronger. To be continued. 5 days after entering the five-color treasure tower, Yang Kai landed indifferently from the air on the first floor somewhere, and landed beside the other two martial artists, staring at the dead monster beast corpses on the ground. Unlike Yang Kai's indifference, the other two martial artists were extremely excited. These two martial artists, one in blue and the other in white, are both men, and their cultivation level is also Third Order Void King realm. The three of them didn't tell each other their names, they just knew each other's surnames, and the reason they gathered here was only because they had joined forces temporarily. After separating from Qin Yu before, Yang Kai has been looking for the entrance to the second floor. After coming here, he met these two martial artists, and the two showed up and briefly explained the situation with Yang Kai. Only then did Yang Kai learn that the two of them had discovered some rare golden crystal grass, but the golden crystal grass here is guarded by a monster beast. The monster beast has extremely hard skin, and its natural defenses are amazing. After confronting the monster beast, they didn't get any advantage, so they had to withdraw temporarily, so they wanted to find another helper to deal with the monster beasts. It happened that Yang Kai passed by here and showed up to invite him. After listening to their explanation, Yang Kai immediately decided to join in. Although he don't know what gold crystal grass is, since it can make the two Third Order Void King realm target, it must be of great value. It's just 4 monster beasts, and it will not waste much time. Furthermore, he didn't care much about the two Third Order Void King realm, even if they had some conspiracy. Yang Kai felt that with his current strength, he could handle it. After some inquiries, Yang Kai learned that gold crystal grass is actually a rare spirit herbs that can help a martial artist temper his flesh body. Even if it is directly swallowed, it can also increase the strength and defense of the martial artist's physical body a lot. If the medicinal materials are refined into gold crystal pill, the effect will be better. And that 4 monster beasts will live here together is precisely because of gold crystal grass. 3 people together, attacking it unceremoniously. Among the 4 monster beast, the largest one only has the 10th order peak, which is equivalent to the Void King realm peak. Just give it a few more years. Promoting to the 11th order is not a problem. The other 3 small ones, they are almost at the level of the 2nd order Void King realm. If it is an ordinary monster beast, those 2 martial artists can also handle it. At worst case scenario, it will only be a draw. But this monster beast has amazing defenses and infinite strength, and it is not afraid of death. The previous confrontation caused the 2 people to suffer a lot without any benefit. But after Yang Kai joined, the situation was completely different. Although Yang Kai also concealed his own strength, there was no problem in controlling the big monster beast. The other 2 teamed up and tried their best to kill the 3 small ones. Then the 3 attacked together, and the last big one could not escape the poisonous hand. Brother Yang is really good, and he is still at ease under this monster beast, unscathed, and Zhao admire it. The man in blue seemed to smile when he said this. Yes, this slightly bigger monster beast has almost caused me and Brother Zhao to be hit hard before. I didn't expect Brother Yang to be able to deal with it for so long, so Sun is ashamed. The man in white also spoke. The two are ridiculous, this thing is not flexible. Although it is powerful, I don't have to entangle with it directly, naturally it can't do anything to me. Yang Kai said lightly. Zhao and Sun looked at each other, and didn't say anything, instead they just laughed to make the matter over. After all, when the three of them joined forces to deal with the last monster beast, Yang Kai's performance was also in their eyes. It was really not flexible. For a time, both of them had some fear of Yang Kai. Now that these four beasts are dead, let's deal with them first. The blood, fur, and teeth of the monster beast are all good materials and should not be wasted. The man named Zhao suggested. Exactly. Especially their fur, if it is used to refine defensive artifacts, it is the most suitable. The man surnamed Sun also continued with joy. Now the three of them no longer hesitate, and they have used methods to deal with the four monster beast. Not long after, the three of them all showed satisfaction. They were given the same amount of materials, leaving only some flesh and bones in place. Then only the golden crystal grass is left now, and I don't know how many there are, I hope there are a lot of them. The man surnamed Zhao looked fiercely at a cave ahead. Let's go in and take a look. Yang Kai smiled slightly and took the lead and walked into the cave. Zhao and Sun looked at each other and hurriedly followed. The cave was dark and damp, and there was an inexplicable smell, which made people want to vomit. There were many other monster beast bones near the entrance of the cave, and there was a clicking sound when they stepped on it, which was creepy. The four monster beast obviously made their home here. After a short walk, the three came to the bottom of the cave. And in front of that, there was a stone pier, about 5 feet in the square. There were a dozen small grasses exuding metallic luster on the stone pier, each of which was only 2 fingers long. After the three people released their spiritual mind and determined that there was no danger in this place, they approached the stone pier one after another. Well, there are 13 plants. The man surnamed Zhao said with joy. It's not easy to divide. The man surnamed Sun frowned and thought of another question. Yang Kai smiled and said, since there are 13 plants, then each of us will take 4 plants. As for the remaining one, we will convert it into the corresponding source crystal, and the person who take the last one will take out the source crystal to compensate the other 2 people. Brother Yang is right, let's do it. Zhao and Sun naturally had no reason to refuse, and they nodded quickly. At the moment, the three of them, one by one, divide the 12 golden crystal grasses. The three of them discussed the last one for a while, and finally Yang Kai offered 5,000 source crystal to buy it. Everyone is happy after being busy. This time is a happy cooperation, I hope there will be another chance next time. The man surnamed Zhao rushed to Yang Kai with a smile. Yeah, Brother Yang is strong, I really hope there will be time to cooperate with Brother Yang again. The man surnamed Sun also said. There is a chance. Yang Kai casually said in a perfunctory sentence, since this matter is done, I will leave now. Until the next time we meet again, Brother Yang. Zhao and Sun quickly replied while holding their fist. Yang Kai nodded and turned to go outside. When he reached the entrance of the cave, he suddenly turned around and said, aren't you two looking for the entrance to the 2nd floor? The man surnamed Zhao laughed and said, naturally, but Zhao has spent a lot of energy in the previous battle. I want to recover here for a while, Brother Yang can go first. The man surnamed Sun said he also meant the same. Yang Kai showed a clear expression, nodded without saying anything, and left the cave straight away. The other two really sat down cross-legged, took out the recovery pill from the space ring, stuffed it into the mouth, closed their eyes and adjusted their aura. For a while, the cave was silent. After a long time, the man surnamed Sun suddenly opened his eyes and said in a low voice, he should have gone far. It's been so long, can't he still stay nearby? The man surnamed Zhao continued. Brother Zhao, why did you tell me not to act rashly just now? Golden crystal grass is so rare, and we let him take 5 of them for nothing. Moreover, looking at the way he bids, he seems to have a lot of source crystals on him. If we can kill him, do you think the 2 of us are his opponents when we join forces? Brother Zhao snorted coldly when he heard this. Why? Although he is really good and hides his strength, with you and me against him alone, why are you afraid? The man surnamed Sun looked unconvinced. That's the horror you don't know about him. The man surnamed Zhao snorted, remember what I told you before that I came from the soaring dragon altar, right? I saw this person with my own eyes, he killed Kuei Sha in front of me, and Kuei Sha didn't even have a chance to resist. Kuei Sha? Kuei Sha of the blood sect. The man surnamed Sun was startled. Yes, how do you think we compare to Kuei Sha? Naturally, not as good. Although the blood sect is not a powerful sect, and it is a bit inferior to the Raging Fire Palace, but I have heard of Kuei Sha. That's why I didn't let you to act. I didn't think of it much when I saw him before, but when I finally saw him make a move, I realized that he was the one who could kill Kuei Sha with a single blow. Even if you and me work together, we will definitely not be his opponent, and you and me will suffer ill fortune at that time. That's the case, thanks to Brother Zhao reminding me in time, otherwise if I turn my face against that person. The man surnamed Sun looked cold and sweaty. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Fortunately, this person seems to have little knowledge, and he doesn't even know the use of gold crystal grass. It is really interesting to find us intentionally or unintentionally. Yeah, this person is really strange. Since his strength is so powerful, how could he have not even heard of gold crystal grass? The man surnamed Sun was also puzzled. It's better like this, it's the best for you and me. Since he doesn't know gold crystal grass, he will naturally not know that gold crystal grass will only grow in places where rare minerals gather. In other words, there are definitely rare things underground here for us to mine. The man surnamed Zhao smiled slightly. Now that he has gone far, it shouldn't be too late. Let's do it now. If we find an emperor-grade mineral, then you and I will become prosperous. How can emperor-grade minerals be so easy to find? It is rumored that you can only see the emperor-grade minerals in the Star Sea. This is only the first floor of the 5 Colors Treasure Tower. But, if there are principal source grade, I am satisfied. When the two talked, they no longer hesitated, each used their own methods, and blasted towards the place where the stone pier in front of them was. After a short while, they blasted the ground into a big hole. Soon they changed their methods again and used them. The power was transformed into various moves, digging down continuously. Sure enough, there is something else. Not far away, Yang Kai used the secret technique Nihility to hide his own aura and existence with a cold snort. To be continued. Previously, Yang Kai felt that Zhao and Sun's behavior was strange. After all, the cave of the monster beast was dark and damp, and the smell was unpleasant. However, the two of them even stayed to meditate and recover after obtaining the golden crystal grass. This obviously explained some problems. If it weren't for any benefits, how could they choose to stay in that environment? Therefore, Yang Kai pretended to leave, but in fact he was concealed nearby and quietly investigated. At this moment, as soon as he felt the signs of the two people using their strength, he immediately confirmed his own judgment. However, in this situation, Yang Kai couldn't kill them. After all, although Zhao and Sun had concealed something from him, they did not really act disadvantageous towards him. The only blame was that he was a little ignorant. It looks like, it's time to make up for the knowledge about the various materials in the star boundary, otherwise he will definitely suffer similar losses in the future. Yang Kai didn't know what was in the underground that was worthy of Zhao and Sun's excavation, but it was not convenient for him to show up directly, so naturally he could only continue to hide. The movement over there continued to spread, and soon, a large hole was dug out of the ground in the cave and Zhao and Sun jumped into it one after another and continued to dig. After a full half day, at the mouth of the cave, Zhao and Sun shot out from within one after another, but the expressions of the two were not happy, on the contrary, all of them frowned, seemingly fruitless. Fucking unlucky. I wasted this half-day time. The man surnamed Zhao cursed. Yet, who would have thought that this was the case? If I knew this before, I might as well just leave, ha. The man surnamed Sun also sighed. Forget it, this is also fate, we can't force it, let's hurry to find the entrance to the second floor, this 5 Colors Treasure Tower, doesn't know when it will be closed, so we have to find more benefits, especially the principal source fruit, it can be of great use to you and me. In a few words. The two of them had no intention of continuing to stay here. One after another, they sacrificed their own flight artifact and went away. After a while, Yang Kai's figure suddenly emerged from the void, staring at the direction where the two disappeared. There was a thoughtful look on his face. Judging from the previous conversation between the two, it seems that there is no benefit inside the cave. Otherwise, they won't be so upset, but listening to their meaning, it seems that there is no benefit underground. This made Yang Kai puzzled. He shook his body. He returned to the cave again, and when he came to the deepest point, he fixed his eyes and saw a large hole in the same place. Yang Kai jumped in. After a short while, both feet fell on the ground, and after letting go of the spiritual mind, the underground situation was immediately clear. The efficiency of the two of Zhao and Sun is indeed good. After all, they are the third-order Void King realm. In just half a day, they dug the underground into a hole with an area of about 100 meters. And there is no sign of collapse. Yang Kai was amazed, and couldn't help but admire the two's methods. But in this cave, which occupies 100 meters of ground, there is only one thing, a huge and complete ore. Don't know what kind of mineral the ore was. The whole body was glowing with a light green color, as if it had grown a lot of moss, but when you looked carefully, it was not moss, but the color of the ore itself. The edges of the ore had been mined, so Yang Kai could clearly see that the ore showed an irregular shape, but it was 10 times the sizes of a house. And not far in front of Yang Kai, some traces of attack remained on the ore. There are many marks, some inches deep, and some are just similar scratches. These traces were obviously left by Zhao and Sun before. Yang Kai suddenly understood why Zhao and Sun showed such an annoyed expression when they walked out of the cave. It turns out that this underground is not without benefits, but, this benefit, the two can't take it away, they can only sigh. Such a large piece of ore, no one's space ring can accommodate it. Zhao and Sun obviously know this, so they want to knock some of this piece of ore and take it away. Those remaining traces are the best evidence. It's a pity that this ore seems extremely hard, and with the strength of both Zhao and Sun, it can't be destroyed. In the end, it can only be abandoned painfully so as not to waste time. Yang Kai's eyes gleamed, and he smiled. His space ring is no different from others, and naturally can't hold such a large piece of ore, but besides the space ring, he also has a mysterious boundary bead. Back then, the gigantic embodiment was directly stuffed into the mysterious boundary bead by Yang Kai, let alone such a piece of ore. It is much smaller and more delicate than embodiment of the past. This ore exists on the first floor of the 5 Colors Treasure Tower. It is definitely not an Emperor-grade mineral. Yang Kai estimates that it is at most a Principal Source-grade mineral, or a Void King-grade mineral. It is so huge and valuable. The embodiment has now cultivated the Heaven's Devourer battle law. It is precisely when a lot of materials are needed to swallow and refine, this ore can be a good resource for the embodiment to become stronger. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated, but directly sat down cross-legged, and immediately burst out his divine consciousness, completely enveloping this huge ore with his divine consciousness. Then, Yang Kai let out a sullen cry, and the power of divine consciousness burst out. In the next moment, the huge ore in front of him disappeared and appeared in the mysterious small boundary. After doing all this, Yang Kai couldn't help shaking his body, his face turned pale, and there was a prickly pain in his head. He didn't panic, but quickly took out the spirit pill used to restore his divine consciousness and absorbed its effect. Time slowly passed, and it was another half-day before Yang Kai took a breath and slowly opened his eyes. The depleted divine consciousness has basically recovered. With the help of colorful mild soul lotus, Yang Kai's divine consciousness recovery speed is more than dozens of times faster than ordinary people. Otherwise, based on his current realm and his previous efforts, he will at least need 10 or half a month of time before he can act again. Spiritual mind swept the mysterious small boundary, and Yang Kai found that the huge ore had been moved to the side of the embodiment. At this moment, the embodiment is a little different than before. Although it is still a mountainous giant, it is undoubtedly much smaller than when Yang Kai saw it last time. And around the embodiment, the refined impurities have spread over 10 feet high and thick layer. When Yang Kai waited and watched for a while, he saw that the body of the embodiment was constantly rustling, discarded rebels falling down, which was quite spectacular. Yang Kai was very satisfied. Judging from this speed, the embodiment could help him in as short as 6 months and as long as 1 year, and would never be put on hold because of inconvenience. He retracted his divine consciousness, jumped out of the hole, came outside to recognize the direction, and then left straight away. 7 days later, Yang Kai frowned and looked at the mountains not far in front, with an anxious look on his face. He has been looking for the entrance to the second floor these days, but unfortunately he has not found it. Qin Yu's words were still in his ears that day, and he didn't think the other party would deceive him, so in accordance with Qin Yu's instructions, he kept looking for places with mountains. He found several locations one after another, but found nothing. He also didn't know if the mountain range ahead was the target he was looking for. But always have to take a look. After shaking his body, Yang Kai moved forward. After a short while, he came to the mountains. He looked up, and his face couldn't help but turn happy. Because this place is surrounded by mountains, the clouds and mist above the head are evaporating, which is in line with the first 2 sentences Qin Yu said. Just when he secretly felt that he should be in the right direction, a small black shadow suddenly shot from a short distance away. Yang Kai instinctively stretched out his hand, and the mighty power came out and attacked the black shadow. The black shadow's reaction was extremely fast. It was originally shooting straight at Yang Kai, but at the moment Yang Kai shot, it suddenly made a 90-degree turn, rushing straight into the sky, and immediately fell like a meteor, straight down. It fell, and there was a constant squeaking sound in its mouth. The tone is a bit aggrieved, and a bit hasty. Yang Kai was dumbfounded, standing still, staring at the black shadow that suddenly shot towards him. It was only then that he could see clearly that the black shadow was a palm-sized monster beast. It looked a bit like a bat. With its wings shaking, it was extremely flexible and extremely fast. At this moment, the bat-like monster beast was suspended in front of Yang Kai, and a pair of small beast eyes stared at Yang Kai, with the smell of recognition. Yang Kai was surprised. Before he could figure out what the monster beast was trying to do, he listened to it squeaking, then opened its mouth, spit out a jade slip from its mouth, and gestured to Yang Kai. "For me?" Yang Kai frowned, but still figured out the intention of the little monster beast. The little monster beast squeaked again, seeming to be responding to Yang Kai, and then slowly flew in front of him. Its mouth loosened, and the jade slip fell down. Yang Kai took the jade slip and poured his spiritual mind into it. After a while, he laughed dumbfounded. It turned out to be Xiaoqi. It wasn't until this time that he understood that the little monster beast in front of him was a flying bat raised by Mo Xiaoqi. Staying here was also to meet and guide him. Yang Kai couldn't help but feeling warm in his heart. But it looks like he didn't find the wrong place, and that girl Mo Xiaoqi entered the second level so much earlier than him, which is really amazing. Lead the way ahead. Yang Kai collected the jade slips, and the bat flew into the sky with a smile. This little monster beast seemed to be able to understand people's words, and when it heard the words, it immediately turned and flew in one direction. But at this moment, a loud shout suddenly came from not far away. "This friend stay!" Yang Kai's face sank. He was just amazed by the spirituality of this flying bat, but he didn't notice anyone approaching. He immediately reacted after hearing the sound. After sweeping away his spiritual mind, Yang Kai knew that there were 6 martial artists nearby, and all of them belonged to the Void King realm. To be continued. Yang Kai turned his head and looked around, and he saw 6 Void King realm martial artists rushing forward. The leader is a young man, with extraordinary temperament, face like a crown jade, and he is of good origin. And it turned out to be someone Yang Kai knew. The young master of Flying Saint Palace, Ning Yuancheng. In the black market that day, Ning Yuancheng and Mo Xiaoqi had some conflicts because of the beast egg. Yang Kai hid his appearance and used tiger skins as a banner, and threatened a group of people from Flying Saint Palace. But he didn't expect, on the first floor of this 5 colors treasure tower, unexpectedly met people from Flying Saint Palace. But at this moment, there was no figure of Lu Yi, the second-order principal source stage that was guarding Ning Yuancheng before. After all, this time the 5 colors treasure tower is open, and principal source stage cannot enter, so Ning Yuancheng could only bring some Void King realm into this place. Don't know what method they used, they have gathered together, and they are here with Yang Kai. Although he was an acquaintance, Yang Kai didn't panic at all. He hid his appearance that day, and believes that Ning Yuancheng can't recognize him at this moment. "What's the matter?" Yang Kai turned his head and asked, looking at Ning Yuancheng faintly. "Don't talk nonsense, how can we stop you if there is nothing wrong?" A Void King realm behind Ning Yuancheng let out a cold voice. Yang Kai sneered, and cast a cold look at the speaker. "Don't be rude!" Ning Yuancheng yelled in a low voice, seeming to reprimand the guard, but immediately raised his eyes to look at Yang Kai, smiled and clasped his fists, and said proudly, "This friend, I'm Ning Yuancheng from Flying Saint Palace. I don't know how to call this friend? If you have something to say, you don't need to act close." Yang Kai's expression remained indifferent. He also understood the personality of the other party, and naturally knew that he couldn't be so polite, but because he didn't know his identity, so he acted carefully. Perhaps, it has something to do with what happened in the black market. Once he was bitten by a snake for 10 years, he won't forget it. Yang Kai's reaction and expression caused Ning Yuancheng's brows to frown, and he seemed to be quite unhappy, but he just groaned and said, "If that's the case, then I'll be straightforward. You seems to be taking something from this little monster beast just now? So what?" Yang Kai was immediately happy. He thought it was because of that jade slip. Ning Yuancheng might have regarded that jade slip as some kind of treasure, and suddenly he was a little motivated. "What's that?" Ning Yuancheng asked quickly when his eyes lit up. "What does it have to do with you? Boy is so courageous." The guard who had spoken before suddenly became furious and shout. "Young master asks questions. You only need to answer obediently. How can you be qualified to ask questions?" Ning Yuancheng waved his hand and stopped the guard's next action, his expression gradually turning cold. He didn't have much patience to continue dealing with Yang Kai, and said, "That's it, I am very interested in your little beast. I don't know if you can cut your love, and willing to part with it." "Not interested." Yang Kai refused without waiting for him to finish. Not to mention that this little beast is a 10th order monster beast, it is not easy to cultivate it, even Yang Kai won't sell it casually, let alone when it was Mo Zioki little beast. After speaking, he turned and left. "It seems like this friend is refusing a toast only to be forced a drink of forfeit, take him down." Ning Yuancheng saw that Yang Kai was so shameless, and he was too lazy to behave politely. He tore his face and issued an order. Upon hearing the words, the 5 Void King realm had to act immediately. But at this moment, the flying bat that had been flying in midair suddenly opened its small mouth, and a string of sharp chirps came out. The sound waves visible to the naked eye are like ripples, frantically spreading forward, covering the people of the Flying Saint Palace in a fan shape. In an instant, the 5 Void King realm and even Ning Yuancheng couldn't help but change their expressions. They only felt that the eardrums were so tingling, the blood was tumbling all over, and the sore strength in the body rolled uncontrollably. Everyone looked shocked, and quickly moved their power to resist the sharp scream, suppressing the tumbling of blood. After returning to their senses, Yang Kai and the little beast had already traveled far away, only seeing their backs far away. "Damn it, chase him for me. In any case, grab the little beast. The little beast seems to be able to find a genius treasure, and it may play a big role in this place." Ning Yuancheng looked angry and shouted. How could the other 5 dared to neglect? They showed their skills and pursued them. But after a while, they lost sight of Yang Kai and the little beast. Where did they go? Ning Yuancheng looked around, but found nothing at all. Returning to young master, "I don't know, they seem to disappear suddenly." A guard also looked inexplicable. "Should be nearby, search for me. Can the things this young master fancy can still run away?" Ning Yuancheng said with a cruel expression. The 5 immediately dispersed and searched around. Not long after, a guard shouted in surprise, "Young master, come and take a look, this seems to be the entrance to the 2nd floor." "What?" Ning Yuancheng was overjoyed when he heard the words, and immediately said angrily, "Fart." The entrance to the 2nd floor is a 5-color beam of light, which is extremely obvious. You think this young master is blind and can't see it? What's there, hey? After Ning Yuancheng spoke, he suddenly raised his head and looked up at the sky. As expected, he saw a 5-colored beam of light standing in that area one after another. He frowned and stepped back a few steps. The 5-color beam of light in front of him disappeared like this. After a few steps forward, the beam of light reappeared. So amazing? Ning Yuancheng was shocked. Yes, young master, this entrance seems to have to stand at a specific location to discover it, otherwise it would not be possible to notice it even if it is close at hand. The guard who discovered the entrance looked surprised and authentic. The guy in the Star Soul Palace is really treacherous. Fortunately, the young master has a deep blessing and God's favor. Otherwise, how can I find this entrance? Ha 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 ha, so what are you hesitating, let's go to the second floor. That guy must also went to the second floor. I don't believe he can escape my palm. Young master, that little beast may not only be able to find genius treasures. It can also find entrances. It is really a strange beast. This young master needs to get it even more. Maybe I can find the entrance to the third floor. Go into those third floors and take a look. Ning Yuancheng was filled with a fiery color on the face, and he took 5 guards into the 5-color light beam. The next moment, the figures flashed, and the 6 people disappeared. But after they entered the second floor, Yang Kai was long gone. At the same time, somewhere on the second floor, Yang Kai took a short stroll. The flying bat is leading the way. Yang Kai knew that it was looking for Mo Zioki, so he leisurely followed behind it, while secretly looking at the situation on the second floor. There seems to be no difference here from the first layer. The world's spiritual energy is extremely thin. Not suitable for cultivation. Moreover, the law is extremely broken. However, the second floor seems to be much more dangerous than the first floor. Yang Kai explored the first floor for so long. Did not encounter too many traps and restrictions. But after coming to this second floor, he could feel a lot of hidden power fluctuations under the release of his spiritual mind. Those restraining forces are obviously artificial or naturally generated, and once he break into a certain range, he will trigger the restriction attack. However, there are flying bat leading the way, and Yang Kai is not worried about any danger. This little beast seems to have a very strong perception of danger, and can often avoid many traps and restrictions in advance. Half a day later, one beast and one person passed through a canyon. The canyon was about 100 meters wide, and the wind is strong. Yang Kai checked around and confirmed that there was no danger. But at this moment, the flying bat that flew over the canyon suddenly squeaked sharply, and there was a sense of panic in the sound. Yang Kai was taken aback. Before he had time to find out what was going on with it, at this moment, the whole body suddenly sank. At this moment, there seemed to be a terrifying suction from under his feet, causing his body to fall involuntarily. Yang Kai's face changed drastically. Hurrying to run the power in the body, trying to resist the inexplicable suction. But soon, Yang Kai discovered that all this was in vain. With his third-order Void King Realm cultivation level, he was unable to stabilize his body. As for the little beast that is good at flying to the sky, also failed to escape. After this catastrophe, it fell from the sky to the canyon. In the ear, the wind whistling, the speed of the fall is getting faster and faster, the strong wind blows on the face, it is as painful as a knife. Yang Kai finally panicked. He immediately understood that he had encountered some powerful restriction, and not only did he not discover this restriction, even the flying bat were unaware of it. Such a strong restriction is unlikely to be man-made, and there is a high probability that it is natural. This kind of restriction is generally difficult to detect, and by the time it is noticed, it will be too late. Falling down at this speed, no matter how strong Yang Kai's physical body is, and even ruining the 5 elements indestructible sword and the dragon transformation secret art, he will definitely be smashed in the end. This method of death is too miserable. The sharp cry of the little beast continued to be heard in the ears, but it was a little out of tune because of the falling speed. Yang Kai opened his eyes and couldn't see the situation clearly below. As a last resort, he released his spiritual mind, and after some investigation, the situation was finally better. He locked the position of the little beast with his divine consciousness, and flicked his fingers, and a golden blood thread flew out, but in this case, he couldn't maintain enough accuracy at all, and he could not take the little beast back to him. In desperation, Yang Kai put out his 10 fingers, dozens of golden blood threads is flying, weaving into a big net, and finally brought the little beast net back. The next moment, he hugged the little beast and escaped into the mysterious boundary bead without thinking. After a while, at the bottom of the canyon, there was a soft sound, and the mysterious boundary bead rolled a few times, and there was no movement. Until then, Yang Kai did not dare to release his spiritual mind to investigate the surrounding situation. But the attraction of this place is too terrifying, even his spiritual mind are somewhat unable to resist, and the deformed shape can't spread far. He thought for a moment, then spoke to comfort the little beast and let it stay in the mysterious boundary bead, but he suddenly rushed out. In the next moment, Yang Kai's whole body was stuck to the ground with a violent force of suction, and it seemed extremely difficult to move his fingers. Natural gravity field? Yang Kai's expression changed several times. To be continued.